Thomas Andre is still one of the very best DPS hunters in solo leveling Arise, and with his brand new build, he is now even better. And this brand new build for your Thomas Andre is going to be the 4-set effect of Iron Will, which is a brand new artifact set, plus the 4-set effect of Outstanding Ability for maximum damage, because the new Iron Will set can increase your defense by up to 33%, because the 2-set effect will give you 8% extra defense, and the 4-set effect allows you to increase your defense by 5%, stacking up to 5 times, totaling in 25% whenever you do use an ultimate skill. And on top of the potential 33% defense increase you can get from this is you can also actually increase your ultimate skill damage by 50% one time only, which can trigger every 20 seconds. And of course, Outstanding Ability is one of the best sets in the game for its up to 60% damage increase when you are above 40% of your maximum mana points. And then the only really alternate builds for your Thomas Andre is either going to be using the full 8-set effect of Burning Curse to get as much power for him as possible, or you could run the 8-set effect of Chaotic Infamy for when you are going to use him in teamfight content. But then onto your Thomas Andre's main stats for all of his artifacts, and for his helmet, body armor, and also his ring, additional defense is going to be your best option, but defense percent can also work very well. And the last two important pieces are going to be his bracelet, which you'll want light damage percent for, and then finally for his boot main stat, you'll want to go for critical hit damage, which is by far his best main stat for his boots. And then for his substats as well, these are very, very easy, because additional defense and defense percent are very, very powerful for him because he is a defense scaler, followed up by getting his critical hit rate up to 50%, because of course with him being a main DPS you're going to want him to crit as much as possible, which also then makes critical hit damage very, very good for him, and also other damage increasing stats like defense pen and damage increase. Not really too much has changed in terms of your Thomas Andre's very best cores, because still the Nameless Demons, Deception, Horn and Magisphere are all still very, very good for him and are pretty much his best ones. Outside of the Nameless Demons Magisphere, which can be changed out for the new Teeth of the Watcher Spirit piece, so that is pretty good as well. And then of course for your Thomas's stats for these, additional attack, defense and HP will be your best main stats, and then of course critical hit damage will be your best substat, but to be fair as well, defense pen can also be pretty good. So next up I want to talk about all of your Thomas's best advancements and where his sweet spot is. And overall, if you are a free-to-play player, I think A3 is perfectly fine for him for all of the bonuses you get from it, but if you're looking to take him into endgame content, then getting him to A5 is definitely going to be a must. But before I do start talking about those specific advancements, I do want to talk about his other ones, starting off with his A1, which gives a load of quality of life and is very, very good for him, because whenever the user gains a shield effect, it can activate the Overwhelming Power effect, and this buff is pretty much Thomas's most important buff in the game, because it's what increases his defense by 10% and also his shield acquisition chance by 2%, which basically just helps him get a bigger shield and can stack up to 5 times. And it is once you've stacked the Overwhelming Power 5 times is when you can actually activate his ultimate. So whenever you use all of these skills here, as well as also get a shield effect from his A1, you can actually stack 2 of the Overwhelming Power buffs with every skill used, which allows him to get his ultimate much, much faster. His A2 is also very, very good in especially increasing his consistency with his damage, because this will also increase his shield acquisition chance by 8%, but more importantly, when he does have a shield effect active, which is pretty much all the time, he can then increase his own critical hit rate and also critical hit damage by 10%, which is very, very good for him. And then one of the biggest damage bonuses that your Thomas will get will be through his A3 effect, because the Overgrowth effect is applied whenever a shield is active, which can apply every 0.5 seconds. And what the Overgrowth effect slash buff it does essentially is it will just deal light area effect damage equal to 200% of your Thomas Andre's defense, which can also have its damage increased by 100% for every 1000 shield effect applied to your Thomas Andre, increasing up to a maximum of 1000%, which is very, very good. And furthermore as well, when the last hit of Colossal Crush does actually land, which is his actual second basic skill, he can also trigger and activate the Overgrowth effect again, which gives his second basic skill a lot of damage. And then for his final two advancements, his A4 increases his defense by 16%, which will give you more damage and also shield effects. And then finally, his A5 is very, very good, because while the Steel Tyrant effect is activated, which is his ultimate buff, he can increase the damage of his ultimate Black Hole Crash by 125%, which will pair very, very well with the Iron Will set. Which then does bring me on to all of your Thomas's best skills for you to level up, and with Thomas Andre, you pretty much want to level up every single skill with him, because when using Thomas Andre in the Hunter mode, he does use all of these skills and can get a bunch of damage from them, outside of his support skill obviously. But his most important skill is still going to be his ultimate Ruler's Judgment, because the only thing that you really benefit from when leveling it up is going to be to increase his Black Hole Crash damage, which can have its damage increased all the way up to 5,265% of his defense's damage, which is absolutely amazing. And then followed by that is going to be his two basic skills being Absolute Demolition and also Colossal Crush, which have the same damage multipliers of 1,950% of his defense, whilst both having a 12-second cooldown. And then of course, as always, for the rest of his skills, you can just follow the recommended skill level up order, which you can see in game, which will give you all of the info that you need. Moving on to your Thomas Andre's exclusive weapon, which is called the True King, which increases his defense by up to 16%. Which in total means that he can get a lot of extra damage through the defense increase and bigger shields as well through not only the defense increase but also the shield acquisition, which in itself will give you even more damage because in Thomas's kits, the bigger the shield he has, the more damage he deals. Just like your Thomas's very best cores, his best team hasn't really changed too much because still the three best hunters that do work very, very well with your Thomas are still going to be the likes of Gogen He, as well as the likes of Min Byung-gu as your supports, or even Shimizu Akari. And when it comes to actually formatting this team, it doesn't really matter too much as long as it looks something like one of these two formations here, and that's pretty much all you need to know. But let's talk about why Gogen He is so good for the light team, and it's going to be through things like his A1, which allows him to apply the Will of Brilliant Light buff to your entire team, which increases your light team's light damage and also their crit damage by 8% for every light team member that you do have, totaling into up to a 24% increase, as well as also the Will of the Fragment buff that he can apply, which can increase your QTE skill damage by up to 150%, which does make your Thomas's QTE skill do a lot of damage, but also as well it can increase your crit damage by 30%, and as well his weapon increasing the amount of light damage that your enemies take by up to 12% for 15 seconds is also very, very good. And my preferred support for the light team is going to be Shimizu Akari for the Echo of Light shield that she does apply to your entire team, which can basically give your entire team a shield equal to up to 30% of her maximum HP. And also when you do get her to A5, her Brilliance buff that she does apply is also very, very good and is one of the strongest buffs that you can apply for your Thomas Andre. On to your very best shadows for your Thomas Andre, and for me personally, my favorite authority leader to go for him is going to be actually Igris. And this is literally just because of the extra 8% critical hit rate that he does give to your entire team, which really does help with increasing the consistency that you do have with your damage. But also Big Rock is still very, very good, however I do just prefer Igris. And then the two best supportive shadows are going to be Serbi for his combustion debuff that he does apply, and then the brand new shadow being the Ice Witch is also very, very good for the defense penetration that she does also apply to your entire team, which makes her very, very good for endgame content. But also Beru with his punishment debuff is very, very good as well. So then finally, it's about time I talk about how you can best use your Thomas Andre to the best of his abilities. And after you've applied all of your Gogen He's and also your Akari's or Min Byung-gu's buffs and debuffs, you'll want to bring him in, of course, with your QTE skill, followed up by his first basic skill into his core attacks, and then you can instantly get his ultimate, assuming you are at least A1. And then after you've then transformed into your Thomas Andre, you can then either use his first or second basic skill first into his core attack, and then followed by the other skill that you have left back into his core attack again, which will then leave you with the only thing that you can then do is just to use a bunch of his basic attacks into his core attacks. And then for me, from my experience when playing Thomas Andre, the best time for him to use his Black Hole Crash ultimate is going to be either when your Shimizu Akari's debuff or ultimate buff is just about to expire, so then you can get as much of your Thomas Andre's damage out as possible. And it will also actually mean the cooldown for him to actually reactivate his ultimate will pretty much be up as well, so then you can use it very, very soon again. And then yeah, pretty much you just keep repeating that, and then your Thomas Andre will hopefully deal an absolute ton of damage. So there you have it. That is a complete and updated build guide to Thomas Andre, and overall, if you did enjoy this video or you just found it useful in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, I will see you all in the next video. Peace!